Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today because I am doing a review of Neon Inferno. If you don't remember, I did a video on this maybe 4 or 5 months ago on the demo, and I said if the developers at Zenobia Interactive kept the same quality up, they'd have an absolutely massive hit on their hands. Well, I'm here to say they didn't just keep that quality up, they absolutely Kool-Aid man through the wall, bringing an even better experience than the demo even provided. I absolutely am prone to love games like this, but let me tell you, from the aesthetic to the gameplay, and especially the music, which was a surprise to me, Neon Inferno is just straight up absolutely killing it on every single front. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But obviously right off the top, you can see that Neon Inferno is wearing its retro inspiration on its sleeve. Kind of feels like a mix of something like Wild Guns as well as something like Metal Slug in all the best ways possible. But obviously this is set in future in 2025 in New York City. And obviously the name being Neon Inferno, you have to have those neon colorways in the game. And I will say the first thing I noticed outside of obviously the gameplay, which we'll get into in just a moment, is this game is absolutely lush visuals. It has so many fun colors. It just absolutely sets the table with a vibe, and it holds onto that vibe the entire game. There's something about art direction that I genuinely care about, more so in games sometimes than even gameplay, probably just down to the fact that I am a working artist and filmmaker for the last 22 years. Trying to keep a vibe alive through the entirety of a gameplay experience can sometimes be hard, because of course every single level is its own thing, but in Neon Inferno I will say the art direction here is probably the #1 most stellar thing I've seen in 2025. But if I'm being entirely honest, these colors are something that are just always going to hit for me. When I talked about Night Striker gear, I said those neon colorways, that kind of vibrancy, that saturation in the tones and hues is something that I absolutely love in games, and in my own personal work, something I play around with all the time. There is not a color too intense for me to not find a use for it somewhere. So maybe this might not be your cup of tea, but for me personally, everything on display here absolutely stunning, which wouldn't matter whatsoever if there wasn't a good game here. But trust me, the game is every bit as good as it is in the mechanics department as it is in the visuals. And I'm sure you've noticed by now, but there is a 2-layer thing going on. Kind of reminds me a tiny bit of Top Hunter Roddy and Cathy on the Neo Geo as well, except you're not actually jumping back into that layer. You have your front layer where you're shooting enemies with one button, and you have your back layer with the actual right button. So you have a 2-layer setup as far as what you're actually attacking. And if there isn't some Robocop theming here, I don't know what it is, because trust me, you're going to see a lot of inspiration in this game all across the board, done in the most loving ways. And from the story to the cutscenes, you can tell the developers and artists here absolutely put as much detail as they possibly could into the world of Neon Inferno. And that really is what I think I appreciate most about this game. You can tell every single pixel, every single story beat, every single level was intentionally designed, giving it a very cohesive feel the entire way through. Now, on the actual mechanics of the gameplay, outside of the 2-layer system, you will see these green bullets here can be parried back where they came from. If you hold down that sword button, you basically get a bullet time effect where you can reroute those bullets on their own. That is definitely going to play a big component, especially in later levels, because they do more damage than a standard bullet or a standard deflection. So you definitely want to use those to your advantage, but you do have a meter on those as well, so it's not something that you can spam all the time. You really want to use it for bigger enemies or enemies that can be harder to hit. When you're in the middle of intense combat, there's almost like a rhythm or dance to it where you're trying to move around the screen, trying to avoid those bullets while also attacking both in the foreground and the background. And when everything is clicking, you're doing it right and you're just grazing those bullets but not actually being damaged by them. It has that same sense of satisfaction of learning a game like a bullet hell shmup does, but of course it is more in the run and gun variety. But when I said the soundtrack was the most surprising thing about this game to me, honestly, I 100% mean it. I'm definitely getting some Suntada vibes here. Absolutely an 11 out of 10 soundtrack. I'm going to go back to a clip you've already seen because I want you to hear the music there. It's not what I expected out of Neon Inferno, but when I heard it, I realized this type of thing, I would just put this on in the car when I'm driving around and listen to it. So enjoy. I mean, if I'm being honest, that's not the music I expected that Neon Inferno would use in some of its levels, but it's absolutely perfectly married to the visuals and kind of has something like a Twin Peaks The Return vibe going on with some of the music that David Lynch chose in there for some of the quieter scenes. And as we move on to the next level here, this train section, 10 out of 10 stunning. That really is the main takeaway of Neon Inferno. I can't find anything about this game that I want to point to and say it really isn't for me. Even all of the light bloom, all of the different effects on the screen, including the scan lines, are done absolutely lovingly, and they really do come across well on the screen. And I will say, I am definitely prone to turning off most screen effects on retro games because I never really think that they actually kind of nail the brief when it comes to emulating what a CRT television would look like. You're going to see even in the corners a little bit there is some vignetting. That may be something you could turn off, but it does work and it doesn't really obscure anything on the screen. But just look at the background here, all of the layers of parallax scrolling going by, all of the enemies that you're fighting off the front, everything here just absolutely is married together. That golden hour sunset, it just looks stunning, and when you have the gameplay to match, that's what really matters. And I will show you in just a moment, but you do have an entire weapon upgrade system as well from cash that you basically get by completing these missions in the game. And if this basically isn't Strider 2 themed right here, I don't know what it is, but you give me a gunfight on a floating highway, and I am sold any day of the week and twice on Sundays. And that really is the overall impression I'm getting of Neon Inferno now that I am reviewing the completed version. I absolutely love the demo, and I wanted to see where the development team could take something like this. And honestly, where they have gone is beating even my expectations, because there are those moments in time where you play a demo, you fall in love with it, but then when the finished game comes out, you can tell that only the demo was the most polished part, and they kind of struggled with the rest of the game. That is not what you're dealing with here with Neon Inferno. From start to finish, and I have beaten this game, I'm just keeping some of the best bits from you. I absolutely have had so much fun with this thing, and the only embargo I had, because I was sent a review code by the publisher, was that they didn't want me to show the final level, and trust me, there is a very big reason why, because it is just absolute straight up madness in all of the best ways possible. And just so you know, I am playing this on normal difficulty, has a ton of challenge, but if you go to the highest difficulty, you're talking about classic arcade gaming hardness right from the start, and it is going to punish you in all the best ways possible. But go ahead and get a second soundtrack sample, because again, it is a lot of the interstitial music that is the best in the game, and I'll be right back with just a little bit more. Between the music and the visuals, the storyline, and all of the gameplay, the developers and artists here, as well as everyone else involved, have really created a living, breathing world that you actually believe could be happening in 2025. They even touch on some current events, at least in a fun, nod way, talking about offshoring of factories, unions, and stuff like that. And I guess apparently in 2055 you can smoke indoors again, so depending on how you like to live your life, that might be an improvement or it might be a downgrade. But as we go to the actual first level of the game, the one that I featured in the demo version, maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, this is just an absolute vibe building experience. That's what I want to get across more so than anything. Every single component of Neon Inferno works together to just absolutely be something special. From all of the visuals to all of the gameplay mechanics to the overall world and that futuristic setting, it just really does work. It is fully intentioned, fully realized, and you can just tell the developers must have had an amazing time doing this. And trust me, more running gun games are always going to be something I advocate for, because it is one of my favorite genres from back in the day. And as far as retro games being made new in 2025, I know that I already said Night Striker Gear is my game of the year, and I certainly don't want to take that award away, because I've been waiting for a sequel for Night Striker Gear since it was announced and always wanted to see one. But this game is so incredibly good, I need to give it a new award, which I am literally making up on the spot. It doesn't exist and will probably never be given again. This gets the Miller High Life Award for 2025. This is the champagne of retro gaming made modern. And trust me, I don't give the champagne of gaming award away to just anybody, but also trust me, I just literally made that up. I don't write script. It just seemed funny in my head. But this game is an absolute visual feast for the eyes. The gameplay is straight up a 10 out of 10, and I wouldn't change a thing. And the soundtrack really did surprise me because it didn't go in all the directions I would have expected it to for the intensity that you actually get on screen. And that's why I'm going to do a third soundtrack sample, because again, I absolutely love it. 30 seconds and I'll be right back to tell you just a little bit more on how you can play this one today, because trust me, if you don't, you're absolutely missing out. I mean, honestly, I love how the soundtrack ramps up in intensity where you need it to, and it backs off and gives you some breathing room when you kind of want it. And as we go into this first boss fight here, still from the original demo, do be aware that a lot of the game's biggest moments I am hiding from you, because I want you to organically discover them yourself when this game comes out on November 19th. Because obviously I'm playing an early build of this game. The review code was sent by the publisher, but of course, like everything else, I am under no obligation to say anything other than my opinion, and I always tell you in videos when I was provided a free key to a game to review. But if I am being honest, I get a ton of free keys, and if I don't like a game, I just don't make a video about it, because honestly, this channel is dedicated to all the things I love about modern and retro gaming, and I just don't have the time or the energy to make videos where I say it isn't really good, I don't recommend it. But as far as Neon Inferno is concerned, it just a straight up love letter to all the classic retro running gun games, while also using all the trappings of modern hardware and technical knowledge, and also just giving you a fun new experience that does iterate on the overall formula. So when I say Neon Inferno is just straight up amazing, I 100% mean it. This game just absolutely has everything I need, and I think if you're into the overall art style, you will enjoy it as well. And trust me, if you bring a friend along for the ride, definitely is going to be even more fun, because I hope we just see more games like this, and I hope this developer goes on to make more stuff in this 2D retro aesthetic, because as far as indie devs playing around in this space, I think Neon Inferno has done a better job than anyone else I've seen in 2025, and it's not like we don't have a lot of games that show promise. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.